this high school, Lincoln High School, preparing to go to China, and we're seeing more of that, and I think it's great to see. I want to get your thoughts on that, and also, how are you celebrating the new year?
Yeah, this idea of person-to-person exchange is very important, and we even see, especially in Europe now, most people from European countries can come to China without a visa. It was recently announced for Canada as well. Maybe we'll see in the future if the US could be another possibility, but this kind of person-to-person exchange is very important because, you know, a lot of media outlets in the US and the West in general, often the reporting on China is very misleading. So when you come to China and see it with your own eyes, it can be very eye-opening and very rewarding. And, you know, how am I celebrating? Well, you know, last night I watched here in China the amazing gala, and of course people have probably seen in social media some clips go viral. But what I found especially interesting is the unitary presentation of the incredible advances in robots that China has made in the past year, and comparing this show this week to the show last year. I mean, you can see that in just 1 year, they've made a huge stride. So there are a lot of very interesting things happening here technologically.
Yeah, the robots are everywhere. I was at a gala last week, robots everywhere there as well. Let me ask you about this. I mean, we heard the one kid talking about, you know, the ball drops, people sit around till midnight here in the West. It's different, though, there. I mean, how would you describe the differences of celebrating a New Year in the United States versus the Lunar New Year there in China, the Chinese New Year?
Yeah, well, in New Year in the US, oftentimes people don't necessarily get together with their family because they will do that for Thanksgiving or maybe for Christmas or Hanukkah, whereas in China, they don't really celebrate those holidays. So the New Year here is a very important event. I mean, it's the largest human migration in the world, and people travel to their home provinces. You know, if they're working in a big city like Beijing or Shanghai, they will go to their home province, they'll get together with their family, they'll cook together. I mean, it's very important to, you know, bring together your family, to, you know, engage in these traditions that are very important in Chinese culture. So if you think about the parallel in the US, you could say it's kind of the Chinese version of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you talk about that migration. I think 285 million people traveling across the country to celebrate just on Sunday alone. I mean, this is huge. What does it do for China's economy?
Yeah, well, it's extremely important, obviously, because when you have so many people traveling, they will be, you know, sometimes going to hotels or at least using different forms of transportation. So, for instance, I have taken the high-speed rail in China many times, although I usually avoid it this week because it's very hard to get tickets, because every single train all day long is completely full with people. And of course, it's not just the trains themselves, because you also have so many businesses that are built around the train stations. So it's people who go to restaurants and go buy things at the train stations, and when they're traveling to see their family members, and gifts. I mean, again, if you think about like the holiday season in the US and people traveling to see their family members and buying gifts, it's very similar here in China for the Chinese New Year.
You know, Ben, I was at an event not too long ago where the Chinese ambassador to the United States talked about the 5-year plans, and he said they were kind of like footprints in sand, kind of. You can look back and see the history of China, but you can also look forward and see where China's headed. And of course, the 15th 5-year plan has a lot in it about boosting consumption. And I want to ask you about if you're seeing any evidence of that there in China as you kind of walk around in terms of boosting consumption domestically.
Absolutely. This is a significant priority. China has referred to this policy as the dual circulation strategy, where China still maintains a very strong, very competitive export sector. In fact, in 2025, China exported $1.1 trillion worth of goods, and including many important high-tech goods. But at the same time, China recognizes that consumption and domestic demand needs to be the driver of future growth. So it has this dual circulation, maintaining export competitiveness while increasing domestic demand. And if you look at what the progress China has made, I mean, it's incredible. There's this idea that's a bit misleading that all of China's growth is in exports. It's actually not true. The bulk of the growth is driven by domestic consumption. But, you know, what we've seen is a big priority on this, especially as part of what China refers to as the Common Prosperity Campaign, because China has made enormous progress in the past several decades in economic development. China has lifted more than 800 million people out of poverty, which is roughly 3/4 of global extreme poverty reduction. Now, at the same time, now that China has eliminated extreme poverty, there still is inequality. So a significant priority in the 5-year plan is promoting common prosperity and having high quality growth. So China is no longer trying to have double-digit GDP growth, but instead it's trying to focus on industrial upgrading, on developing very important high-tech sectors like AI and green energy and robots and quantum computing and these kinds of things, which provide really good, service sector-oriented jobs that, have a lot of stability, because innovation is something that you always need in the future. So China now has become the kind of world leader in most cutting-edge industries. In fact, Chinese universities are now responsible for producing more scientific papers than universities in any other country. So we really see it in the 15th 5-year plan starting this year that China has made its priority being the world leader in high-tech development, and we really can see that here in everyday life.
Ben, I want to circle back to something you talked about because it's really important about the visas. Flight bookings to China surged more than 400% year on year and more than 200% in Europe. So we're seeing a dramatic increase in people coming to China because of this visa-free policy that you were describing. Talk to me about how important that is for China's economy and also this bridge that we've been talking about, people-to-people exchanges.
Yeah, this is a huge development, especially in terms of China relations with Europe. And we've seen, for instance, just in the past 2 months, that multiple prominent European leaders have come to Beijing, including the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, including also the French President Emmanuel Macron, and also, it's not Europe, but Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney. So this shows how, other Western leaders are really trying to diversify their foreign relations and improve their relations with China, especially with the geopolitical tensions with the US that not only China has, but also increasingly European countries and Canada. So they're, seeking more partners to diversify their foreign policy. And a lot of European, average people have been coming to China because, you see in social media, there's so much interest, especially in China's technology. The entire world can now see these amazing things happening with high-speed rail and drone shows. We saw this also for the new year in places like Shenzhen and Hangzhou and other cities. You have these massive drone shows. It's incredible, where you have thousands of drones in the sky and they make these images with all these lights. It's incredible. So people see this kind of stuff on social media, and for Europeans, for almost all European countries, people can now come to China without applying for a visa. It's a very quick flight. It's now very convenient because it's now, all hotels in China now have to accept foreigners. It's very easy. All you have to do is install Alipay on your phone, and you can go on the metro or the bus, and all you do is scan a QR code. When you go and you buy something, everywhere you go, you scan a QR code. It's one of the easiest places now for a tourist to travel. You don't even need to go get cash, because I've been living in China for nearly 3 years and I've never used cash. Everything's a QR code. So from a tourist perspective, it's actually a great place to visit. It's extremely safe. So it makes perfect sense why there's so much interest now.
Yeah, no cash, no credit cards. All you need is your phone. Ben, always a delight talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.